It's time now for the Sports Objective Podcast. No talking heads, just guys who love sports. Here's Dave Richmond.
Welcome into the Sports Objective Podcast. We're going home now. A big victory for the Pirates from LaGrange, Kyle from LaGrange Barber, who's actually Kinston, and Bubba on the road.
You're killing my gimmick, David. You're killing my gimmick.
Kyle from LaGrange, or LaGrange, easy for me to say. And Bubba on the road back to China Grove. How are you guys?
Great, man. Great.
Doing well.
I think we're all in shock. Thrilled. Last week we were screaming and yelling, wanting Montgomery gone, and rightfully so. But tonight we're celebrating a dominant second half performance by the Pirates and a huge win over the Tar Heels.
And what did I say if I could rewind the tape? I was talking about my defense, did I not? They really finally stepped up. Tonight was I love David Blackwell, and he told me, guys, he told me at practice he had a plan, and he kind of smirked. And you know how, like, when you're dealing with a coach, you don't know if it's coach speak or gamesmanship or that sort of thing. But when you listen to David Blackwell, one of the reasons why I like him, number one, he's a Pirate on the Beach Bowl team, but secondly, he actually is a guy that if you listen to him, he's not giving you coach speak. He's speaking from the heart, and he really did have a plan. It wasn't just a gimmick or one-upsmanship or that kind of thing. And so a coach playing with you, being with the media, and feels very sweet. You remember Nate Harvey, number 42, we had on the Pirate preview. He said, we're going to win this week. And you know what? Every guy probably thinks that, but these guys, the players, told me that they actually are sticking together, and they pulled it out. What can you say?
Well, I think two things about the defense. One, the defense played a hell of a ball game. When I make the statement, I'm not taking anything away from the defense because I think we are drastically improved on defense. North Carolina's offense is hot garbage. I do not know what's happened to Larry Fedora's offense, but it is hot. Well, they ain't got a quarterback. That's their biggest problem. With that said, our defense played well. I cannot remember the last time we shut out somebody in the second half. That was incredible. Bubba, what are your thoughts just on the win, dude? Just before we break things down, just how are your feelings right now about the win?
I thought the defense, obviously we gave up the 60-yard run or so early on, but then the defense in the first half we bent a lot, but we didn't break. All right, we gave up, I think, 310, 315 in the first half, a ton of yardage, but we forced them to kick field goal after field goal.
Right.
And once they started doing that, I was like, if we continue to force them to kick field goals with the way the offense is clicking, then we may just win this ball game. And obviously they ended up kicking 4 field goals in the game. That place kicker they have, I don't recall his name, but he was unbelievable because at least 2 of them were, I think, 45 plus, if not 3 of the 4.
Yeah, he's good, dude.
but like you said, just the defense in the second half just came out and held them to about 70 or 75 yards. I think at halftime, North Carolina was 5 out of 10 on third down. We were 7 out of 10. So both teams were, I mean, it's the numbers
right
you
around
would,
50, yeah.
Yeah, very good on third down for both teams. And then we came out defensively and held them 0 for 6 on third downs, if I'm not mistaken, in the second half, and 0 for 2, I think, on fourth down, or at least we had 2 big fourth down stops where it was fourth and a yard or less, and that's something we hadn't seen in an awful long time. And just to see the enthusiasm and the excitement of that defense sprinting off the field and the crowd going nuts, it was just so awesome to see.
Yeah, we might have put up 41 points, but make no mistake about it, we won that game on defense. You held somebody to 19 points, kind of took their will away from them, gave them a short field gave our offense a short field several times. It's been a long time since we've had that kind of performance on defense against an opponent that should have at least a heartbeat. So it's nice to see. Going back to the A&T game, it's clear the reason we lost that game now. We were so vanilla on offense. We were hiding so much for North Carolina that it cost us that A&T game. It was it was a little bit too much of it. I think hiding the Holt Naylor stuff, not showing any of that was a smart move. But not putting Darius Penix and Haseen Howell on the field, Penix at all, Haseen Howell only for a couple of plays, and not showing more of the deep passing game, I think was being way too conservative against A&T, and it cost us the ball game. Right now we could be 2-0 had we just shown A&T a little more. But it's clear now. I think we're a talented football team. I think we will be competitive in a lot of games this year. I think the next couple of weeks is going to be tough against Virginia Tech and South Florida. But now that we've shown our whole offensive playbook and we got a good two-quarterback system, I think we'll be competitive in a lot of games this year. You guys, you don't want to be negative right now after that North Carolina win, but you just hope we're not looking back at that A&T game going, God almighty, it cost us a bowl game.
And that you never know when that's what hurts about a game like that is the fact that it could be the difference between whether you go to a bowl or not. I'm not trying to be negative. I agree with you, Kyle, on that. That could be the difference between a 5th win or a 6th win, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because you look at Temple, they're not what people thought they were going to be. You look at Old Dominion. They're beating FIU right now. That game's in a delay, but they're still a game we should definitely win. Cincinnati's better than people thought they were going to be, but they're beatable. UConn, certainly a game that we should be able to win. I mean, there's winnable games out there, and you just hope that A&T game don't end up biting us in the ass come late November trying to fight for a bowl game. But take it one week at a time. I'll tell you what it does, guys. It changes the narrative a little bit for Montgomery. Now, if people aren't screaming for him to be fired, like myself and you guys, to be fired right now, he'll have the rest of the season. Unless we just, lose every game from here on out. He'll have the rest of the season to prove if he deserves to be the head coach of East Carolina or not. And I'm just ecstatic with this win. Guys, anytime you can meet North Carolina, it's a big deal at East Carolina. And not just because they're an in-state rival, but it's a Power 5 school. And 3 big wins over the Power 5 today for the American. Houston dominated Arizona. South Florida with a really nice win over Georgia Tech. 3 really good wins for the Americans. Hey, how about this? And 2 wins over the ACC today. And guess who North Carolina plays next weekend?
UCF.
UCF. So
that's going to be a drum. That's going to be.
It's going to be an athlete.
Yeah.
What it's going to be. I'm watching Southern Miss, guys. They're my second favorite team, and they just threw a pick to Monroe, and Monroe's going to ice this game.
The funny thing is, you look at the. Today, when the Pirates were beating North Carolina, he said, "You picked ECU over North Carolina." I said, "Yeah, you have to understand that if you're a Pirate fan, he'd been a Pirate fan for a long time, that we beat teams we have no business beating, and we lose to teams that we shouldn't lose to. It happens all the time in good years or bad years. And, I think today, guys, it's safe to say, I can go on record and say we're never going to play North Carolina again. They're not going to – that's 3 straight against them. We beat State 3 times in a row. I don't think they're going to let us play again.
Never is a long, long time, David. I don't know if I'd go that far.
I'm being sarcastic, but what I'm saying, it's going to take politicians once again.
Yeah, it's probably going to take some help from Harry Smith is what it's going to take.
Well, we already, I'm pretty sure, guys, we have 1 game left already scheduled with them.
No, we don't. We have NC State.
I'm pretty sure we. Okay. I'll double check on that, but
we have one state. We have NC State one more time.
Guys, I'll check right now. I'm going to check ECU future schedules, and we'll figure out. I have no idea. So.
North Carolina's done, unfortunately, and it's sad because it's a good series. It's good for North Carolina fans. Won't say it's good unless they win the game. It has to be conditional for them, and they don't like coming to Greenville. Some hick town. They don't like that, even though we're bigger than Chapel Hill, but they don't like that. So,
right.
And I want to say that not every single player for North Carolina is dirty, so I'll make that very clear. But that cheap shot on Colby Gore is one for the ages, and he got what he deserved. And I want to make it very clear right now, I don't want to hear UNC fans talking about the suspensions. I'm sure that'll be on social media. The reason we lost to a sorry ECU team is because there was 10 players suspended today. There's going to be some narrative when the fact of the matter
I don't know about that, David. I don't know that they'll want to remind everybody that they had players suspended for selling Snickers.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying, but the bottom line is it was a great win for this program.
We do not have a future game scheduled with North Carolina. David was correct.
I told you.
You're right. I was thinking about the NC State game in 22. I was thinking
that's the one that Comfer scheduled, that he was, Jeff Comfer scheduled, and that's the only game we have left with we have two more left with NC State.
2 games left with NC State. We have next year and in 22.
Yeah, and that's it. So the bottom line is Bubba, and I'm not talking about Bubba Rosenbaum. We're talking about Bubba Cunningham. Are you listening? We need some games. It's good for UNC. It's good for ECU. I'm calling you out because I've been told by a couple different people that our people, and I'm going to stick up for ECU right now, for the people in the Ward building. I heard that you won't return their calls. So if that's true, I'm just going to put it out there for you. If that's true, Bubba Cunningham, schedule the games.
Well, he probably doesn't know who to. It could be he doesn't know who to call back.
Well, that may be true too, but I've heard that a couple times. So
well, Dave Hart alluded to the fact on the Pirate Radio the other day that we're going to need some help from Harry Smith. So Harry's in charge of that UNC board now, and he's a Pirate, so he has some pull, and we'll see if he can't get the Tar Heels and the Wolfpack to play us. But you know what? If they don't play us, they don't play us. We won a whole hell of a lot of games in the 90s without playing the Tar Heels and the Wolfpack.
From 81 to 2001, 20 years.
Without playing
we didn't play them for
the
20 years, and we won a lot of games.
And the Wolfpack, we only played a few times in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not. Look, we don't have to play the Tar Heels to be good.
And this is the thing, and I want to say this too. Don't get me. And I told Kyle this. I don't know if I told you, Bubba, but Kyle and I talked a couple times. Don't get me wrong when I say this, because playing UNC and NC State is a big deal economically.
Right.
But at the end of the day, those are not the only two teams we can play.
No.
And if they refuse to play us, then that's on them. That's not on our folks for trying.
But not if they're trying. And I can question the kind of effort Jeff Comfer might have been putting forward. But I do think Dave Hart alluded to that him and J.J. McClam were going to jump on that, and hopefully they are. I tell you, if we get a full-time AD in here, that would help things a lot. Hey, by the way, I want to get off East Carolina just for a second, even though, of course, it's a post-game podcast.
The end of the story is, guys, we need to play these games for both universities, whatever universities are involved, every 2 to 3 years. It doesn't have to be every single year. We understand everybody's schedules. You can't do that. But to have on a rotating basis, what do you think, Kyle?
No, absolutely. And think about what it was, how good it was for the economy today in Greenville to have, a pretty big crowd. It wasn't sold out like a North Carolina, East Carolina game typically would be. But we had a huge crowd and we won. Think of all the business restaurants made tonight and bars.
Hotels.
Yeah, well, hotels is going to be what it's going to be. But restaurants and bars tonight, people go out and celebrate. And look, this is the first time I went out and celebrated a win in a while. We stopped and got some dinner and some drinks at Chatter's before we came home. And so, that's money in their pocket that if we'd lost, hey, I'd have came straight back to Kinston and grabbed something at Bojangles. So it's good for the economy. But I wanted to say this. I wanted to congratulate our friend of the podcast, Scott Weatherby, who I think all three of us really like and would maybe love to have as AD if Dave Hart isn't going to take the job. Scott Weatherby's Eastern Michigan Eagles and his head coach, who I love, Chris Creighton, went to Purdue today and upset the Purdue Boilermakers. And that was just the second ever win for Eastern Michigan over a Power 5 opponent in the history of their program. And by the way, they both belong to Mr. Chris Creighton. He back-to-back years now, he's beaten Power 5 teams. That was a good win over Purdue. Purdue's a good football team now.
And their coach is up and coming too. So yeah,
it was a huge win for the Eastern Michigan Eagles. And Scott Weatherby's got a little problem on his hand. He's going to have to figure out how to keep Chris Creighton there.
Yeah, he is. But
Good
he might
problem
be in the mix for. He might be in the. You never know what jobs he might be in the mix for, including
Weatherby,
North
yeah,
Carolina.
Well,
And by the way, I got this is my one jab for the night. Can I get one jab in?
Sure.
So I just want to say that Larry Fedora forgot the games, of 2014. I'm sure he'll forget today, but I wonder if he'll forget when he gets fired. What do you think?
Hey, did you see the bill? No, you don't. Neither one of you guys travel that far south on Memorial. There was a digital billboard. I don't know if Shane Carden paid for it or a friend of his did or what, but it was a picture of Shane Carden showing off his North Carolina or his East Carolina tattoo, in the skull and crossbones in the state. And it said, "Hey Larry, do you remember me?" And gave the scores of both of the 2014 and 2013 games. I don't know if Shane paid for that or if somebody else did, but it sure was Shane. "Hey Larry, do you remember me?" And gave the scores.
That's classic. That's classic.
Yeah.
Well, I think that let me maybe be frank on this. I really like Larry Fedora as a person. I do. I think he's a really good coach. I don't know what's going on this year with him and the narrative that's going on with the ACC media days and all the crazy stuff there going on. And then on the David Glenn show this week, so that he didn't remember it. It's like the off the field Larry Fedora is more of a problem than the on the field. Even though that I know they've got 0-2 facing 0-3 next week to UCF, but if I were Larry, just don't say anything. Please don't say anything if you're.
Yeah, it's not a good look, and with the shoe scandal.
All that right now. I mean, that's
Larry should have kept his tail in Hattiesburg at Southern Miss. Things were going good for him.
He was on a roll.
My Southern Miss, my second favorite team. Got a couple of really good friends that are USM fans, so I follow their program closely. They lost by 1 point tonight to Louisiana Monroe, who actually I picked Monroe to win. I picked Monroe to win the Sun Belt West. So it's not a bad loss. I know it sounds like it is, but Monroe is not. It ain't your granddaddy's Louisiana Monroe.
Right.
But anyway, back to the Pirates. Bubba.
I was going to say, speaking of Coach Fedora, Kyle, what about that picture that I sent you? I'm not sure if Dave's seen it or not.
Oh yeah, classic.
But when the Tar Heels were coming on the field at the beginning of the game, a Pirate fan had made a sign that said "Team Sneakers for Sale" with arrows pointing down.
It was perfect.
That was perfect.
At perfect angle. He was standing right above Larry and the team as they came out. It was great. It was some great pictures tonight. The picture the guy was taking of apparently his girlfriend. I don't know if anybody saw that. That's kind of going viral for East Carolina fans. Guy was taking a picture of, I'm guessing it was his girlfriend, and she was a Pirate, and she was giving the finger hook. By the way, I hate the finger hook, do the skull and crossbone arms. But she was giving the finger hook, and there was a UNC fan standing behind her, flipping him off as he was taking the picture.
Photobomb.
A middle-aged woman at that.
By the way,
upset special, guys. Upset alert, upset alert, upset alert. Omaha. Stanford 23, Florida State 14. Game's not over, but 23-14 right now.
My favorite coach in FSU. But
yeah, I know
moving right along. Oh, wait a minute. Is Stanford throwing in the fourth quarter against them? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Taggart? But anyway, I really love the game tonight. I think I was the only guy on the podcast who got it right. At least I got the win right. I didn't get the score right, for sure. I didn't see that coming, but the defense played very well. Very proud. I tell you, David Blackwell is a heck of a guy. I told you that on the preview. He's the kind of guy you would love to be able to sit down and talk football and hang out. And you know the old classic line, have a beer with?
Sure.
He's that kind of guy. And he's like, the Bears, the Bulls, like the old Saturday Night Live sketch. When you look at him and you're around him, you're like, you could tell the guy is a football coach. He knows what he's doing. He looks the part. He acts the part. And another thing I wanted to say, too, is we got to give a tip of hat to Coach Montgomery today, because today I felt like the game plan was spot on, and the players must have known, hey, we should have won last week, and we didn't get that one done, and they came out angry. That defense, that's the hungriest I've seen the defense in a long time, and I'm a defensive guy. I love 4 points, but that's the best the defense played. probably you would have to go back in the rough era, but certainly
BYU game
early
last year, but BYU's
Yeah.
offense was atrocious. But for far as taking on an offense that we perceive to at least be decent, definitely the best since Rick Smith was here.
I think that I honestly think that North Carolina came in here. I'll be honest. I'm just going to be. It sounds like I'm gloating. I'm not. I think they came in and they thought they had the game won. East Carolina couldn't even beat North Carolina A&T. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my guess. And you know what? I don't know how many times you take a team for granted when that's the third straight time they beat you. And today we beat them. I mean, I would have never, in my wildest dreams, I didn't see us scoring 41 points. And how about the Vegas odds, guys? I want to mention that too. Amazing, two touchdowns that they had over ECU, and we win by, what was that, 22?
Yeah, 22-point win. We were a 3-score underdog at kickoff, 17 points. So,
it was up to 7. Wow,
yeah.
17.
So, yeah, huge flip. Very seldom a 17-point dog win by 22. With that said, what you said about them coming in not taking us serious, I think it was some of that. I think we've been preparing for North Carolina for a while. I think there was a bit of I hate to say, not taking A&T seriously.
That's
but
true.
I think it's obvious. I think it's obvious that we again, I'll say it again, we saved a lot for the Tar Heels, and it showed the last Saturday, Sunday. We didn't know what we were looking at in terms of if our offense was just horrible. But now we know that had we showed our hand, or at least part of our hand, things would have been a lot different last Saturday and Sunday.
You know what? You mentioned it already, but how cool was it? How cool was it for you guys that you have Morgan Ehlers, who's the PA announcer, that he got to call his son's first touchdown, and then he has 2 touchdowns, and I tell you, I think that
he was emotional after that first touchdown. I could hear it in his voice.
And Billy Weaver of WITN got a really love Billy. Give a shout out to him. He was sitting up there with Morgan and got a great picture of Morgan for that moment, and that's one of those time photos or Kodak moments. But I just want to say that Morgan's a great guy. He raised Holton right. And it's not, the great thing about it is I honestly believe, I could be wrong. I wonder how many plays Scotty Montgomery called because, look, I know we were saving some stuff, but still we had another thing I felt like you, Kyle. I said in the stands today, I wish we were together doing maybe a podcast, but it was funny because I said, don't abandon the running game. I just had this feeling that they were going to get away from the running game, which would let North Carolina back in the game. I mean, what I mean by that is stopping the clock. Instead, we really had, if you think about the second half, the reason why we had control of that game is because we had a running game that they did not think we were going to run on them the way we did, especially in the second half.
No, because we didn't play our arguably 2 of our best backs last week.
Yeah.
Well, we played Osteen Howell, but just very limited. And then Penix didn't touch the ball.
Yeah, 2 plays for, 17 yards last week?
Yeah, and so you wonder why he had 2 runs. And then you look at the whole Nailers thing, they had no idea that was coming. That kind of is what it is. And I don't blame Montgomery for saving that. That was smart. But the running game was huge tonight, and hopefully we can continue to run the ball well the rest of the year. Bubba, are you alive there? You still you haven't fallen asleep driving home?
I was just waiting to chime in. I didn't want to interrupt. But
baby, interrupt.
But as far as the running game goes, obviously Holton brought an element that we really needed. But then I know there was the talk last week as far as when we were wrapping up the A&T game and looking ahead to UNC as far as the depth that came out on Monday and Darius Penix being bumped up, or he and Husan Howell being for that second spot.
Yeah. You got like, well, how the hell did that happen when they didn't even play last week? Because it's the plan.
Right. Playing all along. You don't bump. And you remember, Kyle, you said in the preview that you don't push a guy down the fourth because he fumbled the football. But
Right.
the reason why they did that now we see is that was a plan to catch him off guard. And, hey,
Yeah.
it worked. It worked, and I'm celebrating this win as we normally do for at least 24, 48 hours. But we got to
– You would have liked to
we're
have
going to
seen a way
Blacksburg.
to use them last week and help us get a big and save some for Carolina without saving all that, which inevitably cost us that game last week.
Yeah.
I think you can say what cost us that game was turnovers. The game plan would have worked had we not turned the ball over. But it is what it is. I'm happy about this game, dude. I mean, it's a win. It's a win over an ACC opponent. It's a win over North Carolina. It's a win over a Power 5 team. It's huge. And the ACC, boy, I'm gonna tell you what, they're not having a good day today. With us beating Carolina, Florida State right now losing to Stanford. Who knows? They'll probably come back and win that. Georgia Tech losing to South Florida, and right now, guys, Clemson is up by 2 over Texas A&M. Texas A&M is going for 2 to tie it. 46 seconds to go as we speak. I'll give you the play-by-play. This will be final by the time people hear this podcast. But for the benefit of David and Bubba, here we go. Texas A&M's going for 2. Quarterback's rolling out. Clemson's got a lot of pressure on him. He throws the ball, intercepted by Clemson. Clemson's going to hang on and win it.
Well, Dabo is now
There's
5.
the flag. We got a flag down. That's the hold on A&M decline. Clemson will A&M will obviously try an onside kick here, but unless they recover the onside kick, Clemson's going to hang on and win it.
Yeah.
But they had a war with A&M. Jimbo already turning things around there at Texas A&M.
Amazing how that works. But, sometimes a coaching change is needed. I guess the moral of the story is, and we'll talk later about it, sometimes, this could be – we're going to see we're going to celebrate this win for sure. But the answer to our question about the defense in the respect of next week, we're going to see how they play. We know it's a really good, the number 12 team in the country before recording this on Saturday night, so we'll see that. But it's going to be interesting to see how they play. And you know what? They might be in the top 10 by the time, who knows, with Virginia Tech.
I don't think we have much of a chance against the Hokies, but I would like to see us go up there and be competitive. At least not embarrassed. Exactly.
Well, we're in the second half of our show. I guess halftime is over with, so to speak, and we're talking now about stats. And, Bubba, I want to throw it to you now because, wait a minute, before stats, I want to give an update on Colby Gore because it's Sunday now, and let's give an update on how he's doing. I know you saw on our good friend site, hoistthecolors.net, you saw for our good friend Stephen Igo about Colby Gore's brother posted something, didn't he?
Yes, this post was last night after midnight. I think it was approximately about 2 a.m. But he said all the tests came back negative over at Vidant, and he was discharged late last night, and that the family really appreciates all of the Pirate Nation support and concern, and that they just couldn't say thank you enough, and that hopefully he'll be back on the field ready to go next week for Virginia Tech.
Well, he and Corey Sargent had a great game, and I want to just give a shout-out to David Blackwell again for the defense. And that was such a cheap shot that, I would be upset if one of our players had done that to a Carolina player. So I just want to say that again, that I'm glad that everything worked out. And I have to say overall, too, the officials did, I thought, a good job. And there was some, I think, pass interference that Carolina was doing to East Carolina. It seems like that's a strategy that these teams are picking up on is, push these guys, see what you can get away with against the receivers and kind of disrupt their routes or whatever. I know that's part of the game, but still there was one guy and he was upset because he literally, I'm in section 2. I could clearly see it. You may not have on the north side, but on the south side, he literally hugged the guy. He hugged one of our receivers. It may have been Ferry or one of them. Hugs him, and they called a interference call. And he looked like, what, me? And I'm like, dude, you're hugging the guy. You had your arms on the back, like to try to do it where they couldn't see it.
Yeah, there were definitely some questionable calls there that I certainly felt from my vantage point that could have been pass interference on the Tar Heels. But the officials were letting them play yesterday for the most part, it seemed like. But there was one or two called on Carolina that I didn't necessarily think was pass interference. But, of course, you're going to take what you can get in that situation. I don't know if the officials maybe thought that they had missed some before, or maybe they just missed those. But there certainly was not as much contact and tugging in the jersey, and there was a couple that I thought were holding for sure. I know there was one down toward the boneyard on the north side of the stadium, where Trayvon Brown's jersey, when he was coming back to the huddle, was pulled down with his pads exposed. So, and of course the crowd was booing, feeling like there was holding on the play. But our receivers overcame it and did what they needed to do and just made some absolutely tremendous catches. That's what Trayvon, I know Darius Penix had the one-handed catch down at the goal line on the north side, right there in front of the boneyard, to set up the 1-yard touchdown run. And I think that was either a third down play, maybe a fourth down play, but I think it was third. And so, yeah, just our receivers did a good job of keeping their heads in the game, not letting that take them away from what they need to do. And North Carolina had some excellent coverage and just some absolutely fabulous throwing catches by Reed Herring and our receivers and running backs.
Well, another thing I want to mention, you mentioned the crowd was electric. I think it was only mentioned earlier in the podcast, 38,000. But I felt like that even though you could tell that it wasn't 50,000 there, I felt like the crowd was really into the game. And if you're like me and you're driving in, and I was later getting to the game than I wanted to, but we're driving into the tailgate lots, and I saw a lot of blue. I said, oh my goodness, this is going to be bad. But in the reality, I think it was a lot for that section, for the Carolina section. There was some that bought the tickets, I guess, through StubHub or something like that were in my section. But for the most part, it wasn't as many Tar Heel fans as I thought that it looked like when we first were getting there.
Yeah, I would say the crowd, to be exact. I know last night I had said that I thought it was a little less than 39. It was actually listed as 39,298. So right in line with what was projected on Friday. I think at that point there was 38-something in distribution. But, yeah, definitely the crowd seemed to be a lot closer to capacity than what it was, because we've seen tremendous reactions from the recruits that were on hand yesterday. Stephen Igo on Hoist the Colors. Of course, our 24/7 sports site has an excellent article that's up today, so make sure you check that out. We will read a couple of those comments, but just talking about the recruits' reaction. And for instance, one from Brian Gagg, who's, of course, the quarterback commit out of Florida. He said it was electric, and I fell in love all over again with the school. I can't wait to play here. And then you had Alex Flynn, who's the quarterback at AC Reynolds High School in Asheville, saying it was crazy how much everyone in the crowd was into the game. It was loud and had a lot of energy. The team had a great win tonight. And so excellent quotes by many of the recruits that were on hand, and there were several. He has quotes from probably 10-plus players, so definitely check that out on hoistthecolors.net.
Good stuff there from Mr. Igo. In fact, saw him in practice this week. A tremendous guy. He listens to the podcast. Appreciate you, sir. Want to give you a shout-out. He's awesome. And, folks, you got to join hoistthecolors.net. If you're a Pirate fan, if you're listening, I'm telling you, it's good stuff. And Stephen, where he's talked about us, he works his tail off each and every week, and I want to make sure that we give him a plug and thank him for all his hard work. I don't think he ever sleeps, but anyway, let's talk about stats. You're the stats man, and we'll get back to Kyle in a little while. Talk about stats right now.
Yeah, I'm going to say, taking a look at yesterday's stats, in the first half, things are pretty even offensively. Both teams had a ton of yardage, really converting on third down. But taking a look at the final stats, that's what ECU ended up with 26 first downs to North Carolina's 19. The Pirates, after rushing for just 68 yards a week ago, on 25 or 26 carries, had 49 attempts for 220 yards, so 4.5 per carry. Yesterday afternoon, Tar Heels had 161. Of course, about 60 of that came on one play on the second play from scrimmage, and Antonio Williams, who of course was later ejected from the game after the hit on Colby Gore. But 25 attempts for the Tar Heels for 161 yards. I was a little surprised. Of course, late, they had to throw it a little bit more, playing catch-up. But earlier in the game, I felt that they maybe didn't go to the ground enough with the success they were having. But then through the air, Reed Herring was 19 of 32 for 290 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. So excellent afternoon for Reed. Of course, there were some people with the pick six that really stood out last week. They dwelled on that, but overall last week for first game, throwing 65 passes and not really having a running game to complement it, I really felt Reed had a decent game for his first outing, and he built on that yesterday afternoon for sure. The Tar Heels, they ended up throwing for 234 yards. The majority of those were of course, from the starter, Nathan Elliott. He was 22 of 38 for 219, no touchdowns, no interceptions. As far as individual rushing numbers for ECU, it was a true team effort. You had Anthony Scott. He led the way with 73 yards on 17 carries, along with 26 and 1 touchdown, which, of course, was the first touchdown of the game for ECU. Then you had Darius Penix, who had the 48-yard touchdown run. He finished with 5 carries for 65 yards. Husan Howe, 15 for 52. Holt Nailers, he had 8 for 41. 8 for 36. And then you had receiving wise, DeAndre Ferrier led ECU with 5 receptions, but then you had Trayvon Brown, who led us in receiving yards with 4 catches for 90 yards and a score. Blake Prohl, after catching 9 balls last week, had 3 receptions yesterday for 32 yards. And then you also had Taj Deans and Anthony Scott with a couple of catches. And so our catches was very spread out. You had, I think, 8 or 9 guys with the receptions and no one with more than 5. So good job by Reed spreading the ball around.
Well, that's what I was saying. I know people were saying it seemed like in the first half, early on, that they were going to Trayvon Brown way too much. And it's not that I don't like Trayvon Brown, but that very point is that we were seeing there was a couple times on your side where they're throwing to Trayvon, and there was guys wide open. Henley, some of the guys on my side of things, near section 2, on that side of the field, they're wide open. I mean, they were wide. There was nobody there. It was literally like 20 yards of daylight. Nobody there. Nobody would have been able to stop them. It was definitely on the weak side, and so I felt like when I see those receivers, I said, please don't do a whole go to Trayvon all night. And the other thing, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I was worried about, which I was glad that I was wrong, is that they would abandon the run and they just focus on our passing game. And you as a quarterback, overall, were there any things that you see that we can improve on this coming week? I was overall happy with the game, but you're the expert. What do you think?
I was going to say, there are always things that you can improve upon for sure. There were a couple of times, maybe not as many as last week, but there were a couple of times where it seemed as though maybe Reed predetermined who he was going to throw the ball to. A specific instance that comes to mind, I'm trying to recall the exact part of the game that came in, but it was over there. I think we were driving toward the Murphy Center, and we were on that side of the 50, and we ran a curl wheel combination, and DeAndre Ferrier was running the wheel route, and we threw the curl, and both defenders were on that curl, and had Ferrier been thrown the ball, he would have walked in on the wheel route. So just things like that, but didn't see, like I said, Reed seemed to do a pretty good job of spreading around. Of course, not being privy to our playbook and that kind of thing, you don't know the read progressions and stuff of that nature. So sometimes it seems as though the guy should have been thrown the ball, but not knowing the exact situation, it's not necessarily always the case.
And also, to be fair, this is only his second game, so I don't want people to think that we're being critical. I just wanted to see what your thought was, like, through what I know about the game and coaching a little bit, and then you have the expertise with actually playing the game as a quarterback, so all the way through college. I felt that overall the game was tremendous. I thought the Pirates, this was something, and I want to get your take as well, this is something they can build upon for next week, right?
Yeah, you certainly hope so. After a disappointing effort last week, of course, I mean, you come out, you get the running game established the way you need to. I mean, yesterday, just going in, I was hoping that we would find a way to run for close to 150, and obviously we far exceeded that with 220 yards on the ground and all backs, with the exception of Trace Christian, contributing. So a total team effort, and you just hope that balanced effort that we saw put up 510 yards of offense yesterday against the North Carolina defense that had held Cal to less than 300 yards, if I'm not mistaken. I think they had held them to probably 280, 290 total yards out in Berkeley. So you certainly hope that this is something we can continue on up in Blacksburg and just totally just continue to build things.
Yeah, especially when we know Bud Foster's a heck of a defensive coordinator, but at the same time, I think that if our offense, this is what the key is right now for us. Our offense has to click. Instead of playing it, if you're taking the car analogy, it's like 2 cylinders instead of 6 cylinders. Then when you have the defensive side of the ball, I think the key is for me if you say, well, what are my concerns? My concerns are there was a time in the first half, I want to say it was a 3rd down and 14. It was another one of those third and long situations that we didn't get off the field. Now, the second half was lights out, so I'm not talking about the second half, but there was one time there that concerned me. The other concern is we've talked about that's hurt the Pirates in the last 2 years is those explosive plays. They call them, some people call them big plays, but like the second play of the game where they had that 60-yard run, we can't have that against Virginia Tech if we're going to be successful.
Right. Say, as you said, I recall the play you're talking about in the first half. We had North Carolina behind the chains, and I think you were right when you said 3rd and 14. That play was down on the Murphy Center side of the field. And we really had the momentum there with the chance to get the ball back in good field position. And they hit us with a screen pass toward the south side and got probably 25 or 30 yards or more and got the ball out to about midfield. But if I'm not mistaken, to the defense's credit, I think they may have responded there and forced a punt. But I may be thinking about another series. But one of the things, some things that I noticed in addition to what we've already mentioned is think about yesterday. They come out, put the field goal up on the opening drive. We respond. Then, right. And then they score a field goal or convert a field goal there with about 2 minutes left in the first quarter. And then we respond on our next drive there early in the second quarter. That's what we did a good job of responding yesterday afternoon. And as far as some of the other numbers, when we've focused on the offensive stats up to this point, defensively, we didn't have a sack. We didn't force a turnover, so obviously that's something that we want to change. There were times when Nathan Elliott had too long to throw back there. But the defense, I'm just so excited about the way they swarmed to the football. Leading the way, we talked about the play of the secondary early on as far as Colby Gore and Witherspoon and some of the other defensive backs, and did a tremendous job, Corey Sargent. But as far as tackles, Hank Robinson, Devondre Robinson led us with 9 tackles. You had Aaron Ramsor, linebacker, 8 tackles. The Pirate position, Devin Sutton, he had 8 as well. Witherspoon, 7. So those were some of your leading tacklers. And think about also the special teams aspect. Of course, you had we're obviously focusing primarily on the Pirates right now, but you had Jones, the kicker for UNC, who was 4 for 4, and 3 of those makes were from 42 plus. He made from 42, 44, and 49. You had Jake Verity, who converted field goals from 25 and also 44 that were huge, and keeping that 2-touchdown or more lead there in the fourth quarter when we couldn't get touchdowns. And then you had good coverage on the kick and punt return aspects or punt aspects of the game as well.
It's great to see. The one thing that it's great to see for us is how many great guys are from North Carolina, because we obviously are there. But how about from Eastern North Carolina? That how many great recruits? You were talking about recruits, man. We've got so many great recruits that are coming from Eastern North Carolina. And I was talking to a guy about this. You were talking about recruiting. I want to mention this. I was talking about the fact that I'll just say this. This is my criticisms of Montgomery, okay, from Coach Mo. For the Mo Mafia, this is my criticisms. Number one, the first year he never went out to check on his players. So I was upset about that. I'll admit, I'm a big man, a big boy, I'll tell you. And that was my first criticism of Coach Mo was, hey, wins, losses, whether you're a good coach, bad coach, whatever, you check on your players. Look at any other sport, you check on your players. Number two was the coaching staff. I feel like, and I've complimented him, I think this is the best coaching staff he's had. I think that was one of the criticisms I had of him, was not that I hate Coach Mo. It was simply that I felt like we could have a better coaching staff. I think that those questions have been answered for me there. The third and final criticism I've had of Coach Mo was the fact that I felt like there were a lot of good guys we could get at Eastern North Carolina. Not to say that just because you're in Eastern North Carolina, we give you a scholarship. I'm not saying that, but there are a lot of good guys that are homegrown, local guys, and maybe some in North Carolina as well, in the whole state that we're not getting. And so I want to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as the recruiting front, I mean, it's been well documented the way the 2019 class is coming together. So many local prospects committing to the Pirates, whether it's C.J. Johnson or others. So you certainly want to build toward that product on the field being what it needs to be in order to retain those guys, but then also build on what you already have committed. But as far as the coaching staff, I've said numerous times how big of a fan I was of the hire of David Blackwell, and I think we're starting to see that. I mean, he had a very proven track record as the defensive coordinator at Fordham, prior to that at USF, and then, of course, at Jacksonville State last year. So, Coach Blackwell really has changed the mindset and is continuing to change the mindset and approach on that side of the ball, getting 11 men to the football and understanding what they need to do as far as leveraging and funneling the ball to where it needs to be, et cetera. You really saw the defensive backs step up and make plays yesterday, and plays that they didn't make last Sunday against North Carolina A&T. And then, of course, you have Coach Mahoney, offensive line. Hopefully, yesterday was just a step in the right direction as far as the run game. It wasn't a flash in the pan, and we're going to continue to see that run game produce as we move on throughout these last 10 ball games.
I think we just need to simply, what it comes down to is make a commitment to the run. And I think that there is I know Kevin Monroe was talking about on 94.3 the game, the pregame. He was talking about the holes are open. The lanes are right there. The problem is you don't have the time. In other words, you have to make a split-second decision. And sometimes he said, yes, in other words, the offensive line was not doing their part. But he said it wasn't like they were, whereas breakdowns in the blocking where the guys are just running right through the line and they're in the backfield. The bottom line is you got to see that hole open up, and you don't have the time that you think you do. You have to make a quick decision. If you don't, then that hole is going to close up. And he said that he felt like the running backs sometimes last week, they just didn't make the quick cuts and they didn't go through the lines. And when you see that hole, you got to react to it quickly.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that assessment. There were times last week where there seemed like there was something there, and we hesitated. And, of course, from our vantage point, we have a bird's eye view of things, so it's much easier to see what's there or not there and that kind of thing. But so it's easy to criticize or critique these guys in that respect. But that certainly seemed to improve yesterday. And then you're always going to have things that you see that probably could have been done better. I think, for instance, one time in the second half, there was a time where the back had the ball and he cut it back, I think, instead of staying in play side. And I was sitting with Brandon Simmons, who, of course, played running back for ECU back in the Skip Holtz era. And Brandon noticed the same thing I did. He said, hey, keep that play side, and we'd have had a huge gain. But you're always going to have those sorts of things. So the running backs and Coach Jason Nichols, they'll, of course, pick up on that in film study and continue to improve. But tremendous progress. And like I said, it's just such a team effort with those three backs that played yesterday. You didn't have a 100-yard rusher, but you had those three guys, in addition to, of course, Holton Ahlers, help combine to rush for 220 yards. And the one that you have Husan Howe and then Anthony Scott, who are, of course, the speedier backs that can hit you on the outside, but they also did some damage a little bit between the tackles yesterday. And then you have Darius Penix, who had the long run, but then he had another run in the second half. It was, I want to say it was off tackle, and he got 7 or 8 yards, and every time he carries the football, it seems like the pile's moving forward. So I just can't wait to see the way these backs and the running game continue to develop in the coming weeks.
And let's give a shout-out to Kirk Dahl, the new assistant, who is not new, but the 10th assistant, if you will, 10th coach. And what a tremendous job he's done with special teams, with a special team coordinator. Glad to have our great coach, as he talked about when he was playing here. He was talking to Patrick Johnson on 94.3 The Game and their pregame coverage, and talking about how it was only 20,000 seats. And when he was playing here as a Pirate, great to have a guy that bleeds purple and gold. And not that they all have to be that way, but it certainly is a nice addition to have him back.
Yeah, and Coach Dahl, I've never had the opportunity to meet him, but some of my close family friends, that's who actually played with Coach Dahl, and so they speak very highly of him and are certainly very excited to have him back in Greenville after having been a part of Coach Ruff's staff from 2012 to 2015. He has just such tremendous experience, having been the assistant head coach at LSU under Nick Saban, at Notre Dame under Lou Holtz, as well as in the NFL with the Denver Broncos.
Yes, he is tremendous, and so far the special teams has looked really good. So major, which we thought it would be, major kudos to him. Bubba, I know you have to run, so unusual for our podcast. We'll get back to Kyle in just a second, but thank you for all that you do. I know you're going to church, so I want to get your input, and we'll get Kyle's in just a second. Thank you I want to thank you while you're with me. Thank you so much for everything you do for the podcast. And before we go, I know that on Thursday we're going to have our preview of Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah, we'll be talking with John Laser, the play-by-play voice of the Virginia Tech Hokies. So make sure you check back in with the Sports Objective for that. And then we'll also have a to be announced, a guest, potentially a former player who's had a big impact in the ECU Virginia Tech series. So stay tuned for that as well.
And by the way, before we forget too, I know it's a little bit late, but better late than never, as I always say. We have the previews we're still working on. So we had a lot of content, and we're going to do a better job next year, all three of us, of getting those previews out in July, because what happened is we had between schedules and that. So full disclosure, that's on me, because being with the podcast, we could have done a better job with that. But we feel like it's fair to the coaches, and also we have a lot of great interviews that we want to get out there, and right, Bubba. So we're going to get it out in this week. So in addition to, we'll have bonus coverage, in addition to our normal things, and then once this week is out, we'll be back to normal, so to speak.
Yeah, we had tremendous response from as far as the previews, but then also the ECU football letter winners.
We got more of them.
Yeah, say we certainly haven't forgotten about you guys. We just had such a tremendous response that, like Dave said, next year we'll be sure to do a better job as far as spacing those out. Hindsight's 20/20, but those interviews will certainly be coming over the coming weeks.
And appreciate them very much. Bubba, I know you got to run, my friend. Appreciate you. Get ready get your suit on. I know you're going to wear your purple today. And as they always say, go Pirates, right?
No doubt. I'm so proud of the way the team played last night. And for those who were calling me out last week when I said that I wasn't going to be attending, I appreciate you. I'm going to say that certainly put a challenge to me, but at the same time, I'd certainly made the decision to attend anyway. I was just very frustrated last week, as we all were, and said what I said. But my son and I were there yesterday with some more of my family, and certainly enjoyed everything we saw. And just a huge congrats to Coach Mo, the staff, and the team for everyone involved with such a huge victory. They showed a lot of what Coach Mo had been saying. I'm sure a lot of people, myself included, felt that was lip service when he was talking about the locker room. But if the locker room had not have been what he said, they would not have responded with the victory that we did yesterday. There's no doubt, because obviously North Carolina needed that game very badly as well, and without the right mindset, we wouldn't have come out and beat them by 3 touchdowns.
And they have the national champions, UCF, next week. So that's not going to be a tall order for sure. But certainly we have a tough game in Virginia Tech. But again, let's pray that they'll have a good game plan. And another thing it's going to come down to is how do we respond as far as taking this game and building upon that, and hopefully we can do that. We've done it in the past. There's times when we played well in Virginia Tech, and maybe on the defensive side of the ball, if we cannot have those big explosive plays, then that's what's going to come down to for me, is that get them off the field on 3rd and long, and get them. That not necessarily has to be 3 and outs, but certainly don't give up those explosive plays, or keep them to a minimum, or certainly like we did yesterday when that second play of the game, a 60-yard run, it only resulted in a field goal instead of an easy touchdown.
Yeah, so we've talked at length about the way the defense played yesterday. That's what we obviously only allowed that 1 touchdown, and in the first half we bent, but we didn't break. We forced North Carolina to kick 4 field goals, and if we can do that next week, I think next week we'll need to probably force a turnover or 2 at least to be able to pull off the big upset in Blacksburg. But just such tremendous progress for Coach Blackwell on the defensive side of the football yesterday.
Just coming out to mind too, by the way, last week we gave up 28 points. This week we give up 19. And so what is that, 40, let's see, 47 points between the 2 games?
Yeah, we're giving up 23.5 points per ball game thus far, and obviously that's the main thing. And And but if you want to look at that total yardage as well, those numbers are also very positive relative to where they've been in the past. Because of course last year we were giving up a ton of yardage, and yesterday we did in the first half, but in the second half we limited the Tar Heels to 70 or 80 total yards, and I think now in the season, if I'm not mistaken, against A&T we held them to less than 300 or right around that mark. So we're giving up less than 350 yards on the season.
That's a huge improvement, and hopefully we can keep that. All right, Bubba, appreciate you, man, and we'll keep talking to you. And obviously we'll have you back on we'll be back, folks, on Thursday, and we'll get Kyle in just a second. Thank you, Bubba. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I look forward to previewing that Virginia Tech matchup later in the week.
Well, Kyle's back with us. Kyle from LaGrange Barber. It's Sunday and Sunday morning, quarterback, so to speak, my friend. And how you feeling? Did you sleep well?
Yeah, I slept great. I stayed up late last night watching college football. Arizona State, Michigan State was on until about 2 a.m. out in Tempe, Arizona. So it was fun to watch. It's great when you win and you actually feel like watching other games, because when we lose, I'm not interested. Well, I do it anyway, but I don't have the interest to stay up and watch all these other college football games. So it was fun last night to just watch everything.
Well, you said it, but I actually got some Chinese takeout. Even food tastes better. The music, everything is better when you win.
Exactly. Yeah, you celebrate, man. You celebrate, particularly when like over an in-state rival like that. I mean, like I said earlier in the podcast yesterday, we went out after the game, stopped by Cheddar's, had some food and drinks, and celebrated a little before we came back to Kinston. And I'm telling you, it helps the economy in Greenville when we win, because these games, for the most part, under the Scotty Montgomery era, when we lose, I get the hell out of Greenville. I'm mad, aggravated. I don't feel like celebrating, and I just head back to Kinston and grab something and come home. And it's good not for the university and for the fan base. It's good for the economy when we win.
Yeah, exactly. You don't feel like socializing with people or being around people when. That's the way I feel. When I lose, I want to be around maybe a couple people, or the people that have to be around me, like my family. Otherwise, I don't want to put on have to put on a front or put on a good face. I'm not going to be the very sociable after a loss. No,
exactly. And you just, like I say, you were saying the same thing, but you just don't feel like going out and celebrating. I don't know. It's when you really care. There's some people. Well, probably nobody listening to this podcast will understand it, because if they're listening to this podcast, they're diehard fans. But a casual fan may not understand that. They're going to do what they're going to do anyway. But to the diehard fans, yeah, it's just it just screws up everything for the most part for the post game. When you lose, it just screws it up.
One thing I want to get your take on this too before we get back into our thoughts about the Pirates in Carolina. The one thing that gets me mad is when I'm upset. Just give me time. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to come back to reality, right? And guess what? Family members and friends over the years have tried to do. The worst thing you can say to me as a true fan is, "It's just a game."
Well, nobody that I know is stupid enough to say that to me at this point. Everybody that knows me that I would associate with, post-game family members, most of my friends are for the most part are either diehard football fans too, or either they know me really well. So nobody would say that to me, thank God. Maybe my mom, but that's about it. I normally don't talk to her after games. Besides that, nobody would say that to me, thankfully. Funny you say that. I was talking to my buddy James last night. He's a big Southern Miss fan, and they were on their way home from the Southern Miss Monroe game, and they lost to UL Monroe by 1 point at home. And my buddy James was upset, and this little boy was in the back seat, and goes, "Daddy, but they tried their best."
Oh.
James just didn't say a word. I said, "Little James might just want to sit there and be quiet."
Yeah, exactly. We're not scheduling earlier. That is a series we've got to have back on the schedule. Southern Miss and East Carolina have had a great tradition, and that's an example of a team that we should be playing.
David, you're cutting out on me. Podcast gold right here. We're going to win an award for this.
Yeah. Did you hear me?
I did not. Repeat that question for me and the listeners.
All right. So thank God for editing. I was saying that we need to have Southern Miss and East Carolina on the schedule. It doesn't have to be every year, but every few years. I think that would be a great series to have back. And I love the folks in Hattiesburg. Give a shout out to the folks.
Based on the history and tradition that we have with USM, I agree with you. I mean, I understand from a standpoint we don't really recruit Mississippi outside of the junior colleges, and Southern Miss don't recruit North Carolina. So I understand from that standpoint, and the standpoint that it's a long trip. It was the reason we hadn't played it. But screw all that. Put all that aside. Historically, Southern Miss is our biggest rival year in, year out. Historically. Yeah. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean as much to us as NC State and UNC. But, man, there was plenty of years where we didn't have UNC and NC State on the schedule in the 80s and 90s. And it was always ECU Southern Miss. It was a big game. And, we need to have them back on the schedule. Like you said, just sign a home and home with them and, keep that going every few years. Sign a home and home with them. Yeah. And maybe play it every 5 years. Sign it for 2024 and 2025. And then, if it ain't played again until 2029, 2030, that's fine. But let's keep it on the schedule every so often, kind of rotating, kind of like I think we're going to do with Marshall. Let's do the same thing with Southern.
Yeah, exactly. And, I have no problems with I think that we need to have the regional rivals are great, but let's spice it up a little bit and add some opponents in there as well that we maybe haven't played or we haven't played in a long while. And Southern Miss is a rival. They need to be on the schedule, and along with North Carolina and North Carolina State. And, by the way, Kyle, I don't know if we talked about this last night. I was counting up. We have 6 straight wins against North Carolina schools in the ACC.
Yeah, we have 3 in a row against NC State and 3 in a row against UNC. It's really remarkable to think about. And I'll tell you something else is remarkable to think about. Scotty Montgomery has 7 wins, 7 freaking wins in a little over, in 2 whole seasons and now a part of a 3rd season. 2 of them are against NC State and UNC.
Yep.
That's kind of crazy. But, it's 3 in a row against NC State, 3 in a row against UNC. Look, it don't matter what our record is. Neither one of those schools are allowed to talk trash to us.
Right. They can just keep moving right along. And
I'll tell you another interesting fact, David, because they hadn't wanted to play us. It's been 10 years since NC State has beaten us. A decade since they've beaten us.
That's right.
What?
I had forgotten it's been that long. Wow.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah.
That's the last time they beat us. It's been a decade. We beat them in 2010. We beat them in 13, and we beat them in 16. And they haven't beat us since 2008. And, a lot of people want those games played every year. I think the way we play them now, every few years, every couple of years, is perfect because it gives us that motivation and incentive that they don't want to play us. They think they're better than us, and we got there and beat them.
Yeah.
And Steve Logan was talking about NC State and UNC, what they should do, and he was talking particularly about NC State on his show. It was last year or sometime. And he said if he was the AD at NC State, he does exactly what he'd do. He would schedule East Carolina every year, home and home, and he would make it just as much of a rivalry as the North Carolina game for NC State. He would circle it. He would make it a big deal. And he said if they did that, just based on the fact that typically they out-recruit us, they'd win the majority of those games. So I'm glad NC State don't do that. They're too stupid to do that. It's the same with North Carolina. They want to keep acting like it's not a rivalry. Larry Fedora doesn't even remember the last trip to East Carolina. Well, Larry, I wondered this morning if he's already forgotten that one. And, they always say something they manage to always say something that comes across as disrespectful. Yeah, they always say something that comes across as disrespectful, whether it's like, I was just saying, Larry saying that he didn't remember the games, or in 2014 when one of their players said that one of the Carolina players said that something to the effect of, they beat us last year, so now they think they're above us, but they always are beneath us. They always say something that comes across as stupid and disrespectful. And this year it was Fedor saying that he didn't remember those games. And I know what he was trying to say. What he was trying to say is he forgets losses. But the way he said it, it came across as stupid and disrespectful. And I don't know how much motivation that played into our game. Probably not much. We had enough things to motivate us just internally. But, it's the constant lack of respect from North Carolina State, and I think they just play right into our hands right now. There's no more games scheduled with Carolina. Like you were saying, Bubba Cunningham's not returning our phone calls. So again, it's playing right to our hands. It'll probably take some help from Harry Smith or state legislature to get them back on the schedule. And again, what's that doing? It's playing right into our hands, the disrespect card. So Carolina, just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll keep doing what we do.
That's right. The funny thing is, I will say this too, there's more disrespect from their end than from ours, because we want to play these games. And we've won 3 straight between Carolina and State, so 6 straight. So we could obviously be arrogant and say we don't need to play them anymore, which we would never say that. But I'm just saying that we could be the arrogant ones, and we're not. And so pick up the phone, answer the phone, or pick up the phone and say, look, okay, I get it. This is a big deal. I mean, Bubba Cunningham was quoted as saying this week he was jealous of the atmosphere at East Carolina. Well, if you're jealous of the atmosphere at East Carolina, why wouldn't you want to play us? Because that's a great game to have in Greenville or Chapel Hill. Or you know what? Hey, let's be creative. We'll even do a home and home and maybe a neutral site as well, if that's what we have to do. I mean, I'm not opposed to playing Carolina at Bank of America or you name it. I mean, it could be any stadium. I'll play them anywhere, anytime, any place. I know you feel the same way.
Well, yeah, and I'll say this. I believe Bubba Cunningham, when they hired him, if I remember right, he came from Tulsa. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time.
That's correct.
I believe he did. Yeah, okay. So, from conference. So, look, I doubt it's really Bubba who don't want to play us. I imagine Mr. Cunningham probably doesn't have any problem playing us. Is some people in his ear telling him,
right,
we don't need to play East Carolina anymore. Some of their boosters don't want to play us anymore. Like I say, I seriously doubt it's him personally. Everybody, look, by and large, these ADs,
they get it.
They run the athletic department, but they're listening to what other people are telling them. And so, yeah, you got any? I know there's not. I seriously doubt any of the wealthy boosters, East Carolina or in North Carolina, are listening to us. But maybe you know one of them. Call them out. Tell them to quit being oh God, I want to say what I want to say, but I ain't gonna say it.
It's a family show. That Kyle does a great job.
Tell them to quit being kitty cats and come on and keep us on the schedule.
And the great thing about it, basically, it comes down to the ACC schools right now in the Triangle that are not playing us. So every single ACC school in the Triangle, you know who you are, the 3 in there, play us. They don't have to play us. That's fine, but
no, and I don't want to play them every year. I don't want to play them every year.
I'm not saying,
love it how we've been doing it every
I'm not
year.
saying play. No. I'm not saying play every year. What I'm saying is to have them on the schedule.
Yes, that's
difference.
what I'm saying. We're not asking. Carolina State fans that may be listening, we're not asking that you play us every year. We just want to keep doing it like we've been doing it. Let's play it every 3 or 4 years. Every 2 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And let's just keep it going. I mean, it's fun. I mean, isn't it fun to the State fans, Carolina fans? Isn't this fun? It's fun.
It's not fun to them because they're losing. It's only fun when they win. It's conditional. So they'll play the games as long as they know they can beat us and that we had terrible teams. But the funny thing is that we in 2016 you could argue that we didn't have a good team and we
you
won.
can argue. Hell, we were 3-9. There's no argument.
And then the same thing for after losing to A&T and.
Yeah, we'll see how the season plays out. But after losing to A&T, we'd say we were 17-point underdog.
Yeah.
So even when we're perceived to be bad, the heels and the holes can't handle us. The heels and the holes, that's the same thing. The heels and the pack can't handle us.
Yeah. Well, it's fun, and again, these in-state rivalries are especially big time because it's good for the economy. It's good for all of us, and the motels and hotels thank you. The restaurants thank you. I'm sure the clubs, the parties, all that stuff, and I want to say to the administration too for East Carolina, these big games. It made me feel good that it was a tight game in the first half, and I was thinking, wow, we don't even have 50,000 here, which is a shame, but the electric part of playing North Carolina yesterday was awesome, and that's the kind of games we want as fans. We're shelling out $300 a ticket for these seats. Some of us are, and we're paying a lot of money. We're not going to keep shelling out $300 a seat if we have to play Gardner-Webb and Norfolk State and Campbell and like those schedules. That's not the schedule we want. So I'll say that. I know Kyle and I disagree, and we could do a whole podcast.
No, it's not that we disagree, David. I just don't mind one of those games. Now, we need to win them. We don't need to lose them.
Right.
But I don't mind one of those games a year. One.
Right. That's what I don't have I've compromised on that with you on one FCS. I have no problems. My biggest argument with Power 5 teams is playing them certainly in November. I think that's atrocious, and I have a problem with that.
Power 5 teams playing FCS.
That's what I said, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that. But as far as if you want to call it a warm-up game or first thing, I wouldn't even have a problem with having in August a couple scrimmage games if they would allow that.
Oh, no, thank you. No. No way. You don't want to put your players at the risk of it and getting injured for games that don't count. No, thank you.
But I'm just saying that that if they were going to do that, but I don't have a problem if there's a warm up game. But at the same time, it would be great. Like Southern Miss and Appalachian State, I give those folks tons of credit because they're playing like Appalachian State going to Happy Valley. USM I know has always played the big school.
Well, now David, there's something to be said for the reason they're doing that. App State's an upstart at the FBS level, and they're still trying to get their funding underfoot for FBS football.
And we don't need money?
Well, we shouldn't be in the situation where we have to take paydays. That's because of piss poor management from our athletic department, Confer. That's why we're in the situation we're in there. We shouldn't be in the situation.
And alcohol for everybody, right?
Do what?
And buying desserts and alcohol for everybody, right?
Exactly.
But that's a whole other show. But
we shouldn't be in the situation where we have to take a payday game. Like Penn State's not going to go to Happy Valley. Excuse me. Penn State's not going to go to Boone. That's a one and done. Southern Miss, because of being left behind in Conference USA, and then they had a very bad run there where they hired Ellis Johnson, and then it took Todd Bunkin 3 years to get that thing turned around. And then a lot of their fan base really ain't fired up on Jay Hobson right now. And so their attendance has dropped big time. So USM has gone back, being left behind there in CUSA, where they've had to take some payday games. For instance, they're going to play at Auburn this year. So obviously Auburn's not going to return the trip to Hattiesburg. We shouldn't have to do that. We're an American Conference team. Other American Conference teams don't do that. And I know Dave Hart mentioned maybe doing that, and I don't think we should. I don't have any problem signing 2-for-1s. I know Holland was against 2-for-1s by and large. He wanted to do home and homes, except with South Carolina. I have no problem doing a 2-for-1 every now and then. But we should not take these one-and-done games. We are not a Sun Belt team. We're not an FCS program. We did that crap at Florida under Confer, that one game. Look, the other American Conference teams don't do that. We don't need to do it. we call ourselves a Power 6 league. We need to act like it. Power 5 conference teams do not do one-and-done road games at SEC schools. If we can't get XYZ school to play us at least 2 for 1, then just don't play them. Somebody else will. You know, I've said before, we need to reach out to schools like Illinois, Indiana, Rutgers. So I love playing.
I think that there's a lot of that's what my philosophy is. The regional rivalries, like we talked about, including in-state rivalries, which we're doing, I think, a pretty good job of that. I think we need to add some of the teams like the Southern Misses again, and I think there's a lot of two things that we're not doing are the Power 5 schools of home and home, and I think the occasional playing a really hard opponent on the road, maybe I said occasionally. Notice I said that. To start the season's not a bad thing. I don't think that it's not something I would do every year, and it's not something I would do Murder's Row where you have 4 ridiculous opponents that can, jeopardize you going to a bowl. So I'm not that crazy, but I think that there's something to be said for. I think there's.
If an SEC school, for example, because when people think a really hard opponent on the road, they think SEC. If they want to give us 2 for 1, I'm fine with it. But I do not think we should just go sign one-and-done road deals at this point in our program. I'll give you an example. Now, they're a little down right now, and they got the upset. They caught them at the right time. But last night, Arkansas played at Colorado State. Colorado State pulled the upset. Colorado State signed a 2 for 1 with Arkansas. And that's fine. That's great. If we can get a 2 for 1 with Arkansas or Mississippi State or that's not going to happen with Bama or Auburn, but, Mississippi State or hell, I don't know, Iowa. If we can get a 2 for 1 with a school like that, a good, solid SEC Big Ten school, that's great. Let's do it. But as far as just playing these one-and-done games with Alabama or Georgia or Penn State I have no interest in that. Now, if one of those want to play a 2 for 1, great, but it's not going to happen. What I'd love to see us do is sign a home and home, or I'd even do a 2 for 1 with somebody like Illinois or Indiana or Rutgers, because those are games that I think we should win. But if it just so happens and it looks good when we win them because they're Big Ten opponents, but if we do lose them, it doesn't look bad. If East Carolina loses to Illinois,
right,
it doesn't look bad. So right. I'd love to get some of those schools on the schedule. I think you and me have a similar philosophy with scheduling than we realize.
Yeah,
there's just a couple of things that you're willing to do and there's a couple of things that I'm willing to do that you're not and I'm not, and so that's fine. We're talking big picture, but
yeah, I think that's the thing is that there's I think what I'm trying to say is you and I have actually the same thing. What you're saying is don't put yourself in a situation, which I totally agree on, where you're playing this ridiculous schedule that you don't have a chance to win any of the non-conference, which means that we're in a tough league where the competition has the schools that we were even with or whatever. Well, like Memphis had some down years, so then we can say, okay, we got a good shot at them. And then no, not a lot. I'm just saying, but they did have.
Yeah, they did. They were terrible for. Oh my God, Memphis football was terrible up until the point where they hired home slices at Virginia Tech. Now, yeah, we dominated Memphis. For years.
Tulane was another one that we're like, oh my God, we were.
Yeah, but Tulane was always a thorn in our side when we get to the Superdome.
But there's certain schools like that.
We were always better than that. Have invested in football, and because of being in metropolitan areas, being in the American and being on TV more has helped them with recruiting. And their athletic their athletic directors and programs have invested more into their programs. And, you know, the American Athletic Conference, let me give you an example. We beat North Carolina yesterday. South Florida beat Georgia Tech. Houston boat raced Arizona.
That was unbelievable. I mean,
I saw that coming. I watched Arizona play BYU the week before. They're not good. They are not
Kevin
good.
Sumlin is a good coach, and maybe it'll take time. But
yeah, I agree.
That was, and maybe it's because of the problems they had with Rich Rod and all that. That's what my gut's telling me.
Well, I think it's got a lot to do with that quarterback. It's not a throwing quarterback out of Arizona. He's a runner. And
right.
You look at someone's offense, you think Johnny Football used to run it, but those plays Johnny Football used to make running it were not design runs. That was him improvising. And that kid's used to playing with a lot of design runs in Rich Rod's offense. And now someone's trying to make him a pass quarterback.
Like a pro style?
Well, not so much pro style. Just someone's version of the spread. And he's tried to make him pass the ball a lot, and it just ain't working. He's trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Someone will figure it out, though. He's a good coach.
Yeah, he is. And it's early. It definitely, I know that people say that a lot, but it really is early in the season, and we'll have to, and Pirate fans have to keep that in mind. And also, I was going to tell you, I was doing some research because we had our great guest on the preview, Adam Lucas from Carolina Insider Podcast and also GoHeels.com, and I was researching him and trying to find out more about the team and all that for our preview, and I stumbled across this, and you're not going to believe this, but the Rams Club actually has a campaign going on right now, and you hear me all the time talking about we have to have a plan, right?
Yeah.
And they actually have, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and you could check me out later on this, but I think it was $112 million fundraising campaign. Now, everybody's going to say, well, Dave, they're Carolina, and I understand that. I understand that they have a wealth of this, that, and the other. But can't we have a campaign where we're raising money for our athletics program after 2019? Because what's going to happen is we're in a situation right now where 2019 is going to roll around in the spring, and Philip Wood, as you know, on our preview for the A&T game, said, I don't want to give you an actual date because if it doesn't happen, and I understand that. So it's coming soon, spring 2019, when we'll have that. So my question to you is, what do we do after 2019? Where's the program headed after? Because I think let's say that if right now where we are right now, Sunday, after the Carolina game, what happens if, let's say Scotty Moe has a decent season or we go to a bowl, what are we going to do next year and beyond? So we have plans up to 2019, and it doesn't look like we have anything beyond spring of 2019 of where we're headed with this program. So what do you think?
I agree with you. I think what we have to do is get an athletic director in here first. Once we get an AD in here, a full-time athletic director that's here every day, that's his job to direct the athletic department. Then I think we can do some of those things. But I think that definitely needs to be done. We need to have long-term plans in place. And you get the right AD in here, be it Dave Hart. If Dave doesn't want the job, Scott Weatherby would be my choice. I think you'll see a lot of those things get done. But first things first, we got to get an AD in here. And then a lot of those other things like you're talking about will hopefully take care of themselves.
And I'm hearing a rumor, by the way, so I want to share this. And I wanted to say on this podcast, too, I think I do say from time to time, Kyle, Bubba, and I, all three of us have sources. Then we have people that we know who know people. And then sometimes we state facts that we know they're straight up facts. And then we have our opinions. So we tell you what it is. I've heard a rumor that Dave Hart is going to sign a deal in December as the next athletic director for 2 years. I don't know if that's true. I'm going to put it out there to you. Have you heard anything?
Nothing along those lines that he signed it in December for 2 years. I've heard it speculated for a while now he was going to sign a 2-year contract. If it's my one question to you, if that's the case, whoever your source is, then why wait to December? If he's gonna be our full-time athletic director, why are we waiting till December to sign him up for it? If he's made that decision,
well, I think that.
Well, then make the announcement.
I agree with you on that. I think what I've heard, I think it's for. In other words, what it comes down to. This is my gut feeling. I don't know this, so I tell people straight up all the time. We're very careful on how we handle things, so we don't put words in people's mouth or that. So it's pure speculation on my part. But I think he's trying to see how the football season goes, whether he takes the job or not. That's my guess. I don't know that for a fact.
Are you saying he'll take the job if we have a good season, or are you saying he'll take the job if we don't have a good season?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So I'm putting that on the podcast. I'm not sure, but when I heard that, that's what came to mind. So I don't know that to be.
Well, it could be just the simple fact that it might not even be that complicated. It could be just that he's got things he has to finish up with his private business, and he's not going to be ready to take the job until December. But if he's already said, hey, look, I'm going to sign in December, well, then let's make the announcement now. Dave Hart's going to finish out his current contract and his current duties, and then in December he will become our full-time athletic director. That sure would make people feel a lot better. It would put a big smile on a lot of people's faces. So if that's the case, and we do know people in Ward listen to the show. So if people are listening and that rumor's true, pass what I just said along. If you want Pirate Nation to feel a lot better, this UNC thing's gonna help. It'll help for 1 week. But if you want Pirate Nation as a whole to feel better, if that rumor is true, go ahead and make the announcement that in December Dave Hart will take over as athletic director.
That would be awesome. That's a great Christmas present too, but early Christmas present, I should say, if you go ahead or Halloween or Thanksgiving, right?
Whatever. Yeah. My birthday's in October. It's a birthday present.
Yeah, and I feel like with us right now, we actually have. It feels good. I want to get your thoughts before we go. I know I've talked to you a long time, but stuff I wanted to get off our chest for sure. And as far as Virginia Tech, let's look at this is our early preview of what our thoughts are, and then we'll have our preview out, by the way, folks, on Thursday. What are your early thoughts on Virginia Tech? They look really good.
I don't know. FSU looked like hot garbage last night. They almost lost to Samford. So I don't know how impressive that Virginia Tech win over FSU was.
And then they played William and Mary yesterday.
They looked great on offense yesterday against William and Mary, that's for sure. I don't see us going up to Blacksburg and winning the game. We didn't, everything didn't change overnight just because we beat Carolina. I'll tell you what I want to see. How about this instead of what I think is going to happen? I'll tell you what I want to see. I want to see that this wasn't a flash in the pan.
Right.
I want to see that we really do have a running game. I want to see that we have diversity in our offense. I want to see that this two-quarterback system can work. I want to see that the defense is drastically improved and plays hard for 4 quarters. I want to see us in the game at least until the third quarter.
Right.
If we go up to Blacksburg and we lose, I'll just throw a score out there. If it's 38-24, I'm going to feel pretty good about things. Yeah. Now, if we go to Blacksburg and they boat race us, and it's
64-13.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, then I'm going to say same old crap. But what I want to see is a competitive, hard-fought Pirate football game that we can be proud of the effort and feel like we're building. That's what I want to see. Whether we'll see that or not, I don't know. So we'll get into what we think we'll see on our preview show, but that's what I want to see.
What I would like to see is obviously a W. That's going to be very hard against Virginia Tech for sure. What I want to see from the Pirates is this is my thing. Keep going with the run. that running game, we have 4 quality backs. It's not like I was thinking about you, Kyle, watching the game yesterday afternoon and thinking that Kyle is smiling and grinning from ear to ear because the running game, I've been screaming to the rooftops, from the highest mountain, we've got to have a running game, and they've agreed with us, but the way that we attacked with I don't remember seeing Trace Christian play, but I
did not.
Okay. I did see the other 3 backs. And you know what? Anthony Scott and Hussein Howe and when you have Darius Phoenix, those 3 right there are tremendous backs. I mean, we should be proud of the skill positions. There's no excuse for people to say we have talent, and we've got more talent coming. And we'll see how my question marks for me will be, of course, Reed Herring. This is a huge atmosphere for him. His first real test is going to be in fact, it's going to be his first road game. So how does he play?
Hey, I got a question for you, David.
Okay.
Do you, with Holton,
yeah,
you got your 4-game rule? Do you go ahead and just keep playing him and through 4 games, just Virginia Tech, South Florida, Old Dominion, and you just go ahead and roll him out these next 3, or do you select which games, or do you just say screw that 4-game rule? He was too effective against North Carolina. We're going to keep doing it all year, or do you right now still have that 4-game mind in your head, 4-game plan in your head, and then if he just continues to be really effective, scrap it and just go ahead and do the 2-quarterback system all year. Do you play him against Virginia Tech?
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm debating that in my head. So again, my honesty, you can tell. And another thing is, my question is about Ifedi. I like him, and not to say that we have to have all 3 quarterbacks equal time or anything like that, but this is where my concern is. Okay, so last year you barely see Reed Herring, right? And everybody said we want, that you have the grad transfers and all that mess and JUCOs with Gardner Minshew and Cirk. And the one worry I had about Cirk came to be true, that he was just not healthy to play. But could we see if Reed, God forbid, but if Reed Herring goes down, you've got to have Holton Ahlers and Ifedi to have experience. So that's my concern. It's not that
if Reed goes down, Holton's the starter. If Ifedi could do what Holton could do, he would have played yesterday.
Well, you see where I'm going with it. I just feel like that we had no experience for Reed coming into this year, and you had guys that are JUCOs and grad transfers you're putting all your weight on, and then the guy that's your homegrown talent that Montgomery actually recruited at Duke as well, and knows very well. I just feel like that I'm worried my worry is that if we put everything on Reed right now, he gets hurt at Virginia Tech or whenever, and then Holton is a true freshman coming in. He looked fabulous, by the way. Loved. He's just
they both did. Reed had a great game at Holton. Now, the thing about Holton is UNC wasn't prepared for that at all.
Yeah.
And then, I'll give you an example. They hadn't practiced for the read option, and that long touchdown that Penix had, they were keying in on Reed keeping that ball. That's why he busted off that long touchdown.
Yeah.
Now, so that gets us a second element in the running game. But
which we said last week.
Yes, we needed. I think we could do some of that stuff with Reed. Reed's fast. He just ain't big. I think we could do a little bit more of that stuff with Reed. Here's what I would do. I would go ahead and play at Holton against Virginia Tech and see how it does. See if see if it's effective still. And if it is, my plan would be probably I would practice him for ODU. I would keep whatever package I have. I'd have a Holton package. I'd have practiced some, but then I wouldn't plan on using him for ODU. I forget the game here with South Florida. I'm sorry. But South Florida would be after Virginia Tech. I'd play him this week, see how effective it is against Virginia Tech, and then go from there. Then I would decide, hey, we're gonna
we're going to just use him 4 games, barring injury. Or, look, if it's effective again against Virginia Tech, you got to stick with that 2-quarterback system all year. You just do. And you got to say, you got to scrap the 4-game redshirt idea. I mean, if it's effective, if it continues to be effective, you got to.
What do you do with Fetty?
Well, he's. I don't know. I get what you're saying. You want to keep him happy because you don't want him to transfer.
I think he's what I'm saying is I think that what I would like to see is have him. What I would like to see have him is there's times you use a wildcat. If there's times that you could get him some experience.
Man, you're playing so many quarterbacks. You're Steve Spurrier, and you're being Steve Spurrier there, David.
Well, the thing I'm worried about is, okay, hypothetically, I'm just going to throw a hypothetical out right now. What happens if both of them go down and you're only down to Fetty and you've been using a 2-quarterback system, which is great. I'm not complaining. Don't even have a problem with that. I don't like the adage if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. I think that's only true if you don't have talent and you're playing 2 quarterbacks like we had in 2015 with that system. But I think that I'm worried about Fetty.
Summers had talent. He just wasn't a true quarterback.
Well, that's what I mean at the quarterback position. I'm not saying Summers didn't have talent. He's a heck of an athlete. But as far as being a Division I quarterback,
no,
that was not the case. But anyway, my question mark is on Fetty. I love Holton. I have nothing against Holton or Reed, and I stated I was disappointed with the first game because I've been a believer in Reed Herring, and I think it's a good problem to have. We have 3 quality quarterbacks, different styles. I think that Fetty would be more of a. Don't you think he's more of a Reed option kind of guy?
He's a Holton Ahlers type quarterback, but without the size. Holton Ahlers looks like Tim Tebow.
He's huge.
Yeah, he is a big old boy and strong and fast.
Yeah,
he is, and I'll tell you, him and Reed are both really good. It'll be interesting to see how Holton still has to develop his passing game at this level.
Yeah.
But right now, using him in special situations, yeah. But as far as Fetty goes, what would be nice, maybe, we're looking way ahead. We're looking way ahead here, but and sure are changing our tune from one game. But if for example, maybe we're in a situation where we're blowing out Old Dominion, then putting Fetty in and get him some playing time.
Yeah.
Those
you
kind of
see
things.
what I'm going on. I'm looking at playing time. I'm not trying to be like everybody's equal or, we got to do that or have all 3 quarterbacks play an even amount or some kind of crazy mess like that. I'm just saying I feel like what I'm getting at is we don't need to get in a situation. This is the most talent we've had at quarterback in 4 years, and we don't need to get to a situation where if, God forbid, any of those 3 get hurt or Holton and Reed get hurt, then we're screwed. So then what could happen to us is we could actually have it where we're actually, say we win 3 or 4 games and it's November and you all of a sudden, oh God, we got to start Fetty and he has very little experience out there. That's what, in a nutshell, I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying, but if you're going to play him, you got to play him some more time. Like I said, if Kingsley Fetty could do what Holton Ahlers can do, he would have played yesterday instead of Holton. So, you got to. If there's a time like against Old Dominion, and like I say, that could be a ball game for 4 quarters, certainly. But let's just say we do put them away by the 3rd, and then put Kingsley in and get them some playing time.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting to see, and at least I will say this: at least you and I can debate it, and we have something to talk about in the quarterback room. Now that we have 3 great guys, not only are they 3 great kids, but there are 3 great. I mean, I remember Kinsley. Another reason why I want to see him successful, he's one hell of a teammate. Do you remember last year when he was cheering on? He was really trying to keep the spirits alive, and I mean, most of us in the stands were having a really hard time. And here's a guy he was loose. He was trying really hard to
keep his teammates going and everything. And I liked him before, but I saw that in a few games last year. I'm on the south side, so I looked over there and I saw him. He was really trying hard to keep his guys alive, and that's what I feel like. He's definitely a leader, and I like what I saw. I don't know inside the locker room what he's like, but again, I know life is not fair, and you can't divide up the reps for the quarterbacks. But I just felt like that's an interesting dynamic there that I want to see how that plays out, a storyline. But what's great is, look, you've got Alabama and Clemson that have more than one quarterback. But isn't that good? But isn't that a good problem to have?
Yeah, in this situation it is, yes. Because yesterday watching Reed, there was nothing in the world that I saw that was bad in a second start for that young man. That was Reed Herron's second career start, and I thought he played fabulous. And then Holton came in and did exactly what he was asked to do and did it successfully. So in this situation, yeah, it's a 2-quarterback system because you want it, not because, well, it may be a little bit of necessity for the running game, but in terms of quarterback play, I think Reed is great. I think it is a bit of a necessity for the run game to bring in Holton some, but no, it's a good problem to have for sure. And you tell you what else is good. It's good that we're able to talk about this and be positive and talk about a big win over the Tar Heels rather than me screaming at the top of my lungs about firing Montgomery. He right now I'm willing to give him look. I'm not on the Montgomery bandwagon. I'm not saying he's going to be here next year. Don't get me wrong. But right now he gets a pass, and it's let's see how the season plays out. So I just wish, and we'll wind this thing up. I wish we had been so damn vanilla against A&T. We could be 2-0 right now. Just think after that performance yesterday, and maybe if we weren't as vanilla against A&T, we wouldn't have won by as wide of a margin against Carolina. But we'd have beat them anyway because that defense held them to 19 points.
Yep.
So we could easily be 2-0 right now and feeling really good about things and about getting to a bowl. But it is what it is. We're 1-1, and so we'll see how things play out.
Yeah, the worst case scenario would be 0-2 right now. So at least we know that the good news is, even though we lost that game to A&T, it may have fired a spark in them. They got so angry, just like my high school coach, baseball coach, said in Williamston. He said, Mike Perrell, he said, when you get tired of losing, you'll find a way to win. And I think that, my God, I know we're tired of losing. And inside that locker room, that they're tired of losing. And also, finally, I want to mention before I'll let you go and we'll wrap things up. Don't you think the play calling, when you were talking about, do you think Montgomery had, I said that earlier last night, and I'll leave you this. Do you think that Montgomery called most of the plays yesterday?
I have no idea if it was him or Peterson. Per IGO, Montgomery since late last season has been more involved in the play calling. I don't know. That's a good question.
It would be interesting to see, because it seemed like the reason I brought that up, he was really mad with the idea that Penix and Howell didn't have a lot of playing time.
Yeah, but you know what? You take care of that during the game. I don't look. I think that was the plan. I think BS. I think that was the plan all along. He knew Darius Penix was going to step out on that field against A&T. Haseen Howell only had 2 carries. He had enough sense to realize he didn't play the whole first half. That was the game plan the whole time, to hide those 2 guys for UNC. Like I said, but at least
we thought we had enough to beat. So in other words, we thought we had enough to beat A&T.
Being vanilla and using 2 backs, and we were going to hide personnel and schemes. And I get hiding the whole Naylor stuff. That makes perfect sense. But the rest of it, no, that was
that was, and it would have worked had we not turned the ball over.
Yeah.
But I say a good way not to turn the ball over, put Darius Pennington and let him run it in. It is what it is. Let's,
Yeah.
I'm still not over that one. I'm thrilled we beat the Tar Heels, but that A&T game is still
tough.
It still sticks in my craw. But I want to say this, and then we're going to wrap this up. Did you get the feeling in the third quarter that our fans almost didn't know how to react?
Yeah. I was going to say that, yeah. You know, the funny thing is, I forgot to ask you, Bubba, last night. It was very strange when my sister and son Alexander, who predicted us were going to win, he said on Friday that he was going to help the Pirates. I texted you that. I thought that was...
You bring your child to every game from here on out.
All right. He was so excited. He actually today told my wife and my oldest son that we won and it was a great game, and he told them that they missed out, and I laughed really hard. But anyway, the crowd when we were leaving, what I was getting at, you would have thought we lost to Carolina. It was quiet.
Oh, well, you must have been going out a different area than I did, or you went out earlier.
No, I didn't.
I went out around. Where did you go out, David? I went out around gate 13, 10, that area.
It used to be gate 2. It's the area on the press box side. And
okay, all right. On the north side, we went out around gate 10, around gate 13, that area. It was loud. People were chanting purple, gold, having a blast. So I think it could just be those old people that sit over there on that south.
Maybe. I don't know.
But I did think in the third quarter that our fans were a little quiet for us to be up on Carolina, and then in the fourth quarter, it seemed like everybody it sunk in. Hey, we're going to do this.
We're going to win this one.
And the crowd came alive.
I was saying that I was telling people that we're going to win this game, and they're like, too early. I said, it's the third quarter. I said, the way we're playing, we're going to win this game. And I told them I predicted, and they were like, are you serious? You predicted to win? I said, yeah. There was 2 or 3 guys around me. I said, like I was telling you earlier, that we normally lose the games we shouldn't, and we win the games we shouldn't. That's the life and narrative of a Pirate fan. And so there we go. But I appreciate you, Kyle. I know that you stayed up late last night watching games, but you came on here with us, and we're going to wrap this up along Pirate Football Rewind. But for Kyle from LaGrange Barber and Bubba Rosenbaum, I'm Dave Richmond for the Sports Objective Podcast.
You've been listening to the Sports Objective Podcast. Join us next time as the guys will be objective, and the objective is sports.